Chapter 4. Where does this fit? Sometimes I think of my life like a giant puzzle. Over time, God gives me glimpses of the bigger picture of my life's purpose. And with each piece of the puzzle I receive, I gain more insight that builds this unexplainable excitement inside me. It's an excitement for what He's doing and what He's going to do. In contrast, there have been many times when I couldn't see where the pieces I have been given are supposed to fit. I think about the events since transverse myelitis took my independence and nearly destroyed me, my marriage, and everything I valued. There were many pieces that just didn't seem to fit. Or I have made such a total mess of what I was given, I wondered, how could God possibly use this? As I started piecing my life together, it looked nothing like the image I had envisioned for my life. It didn't make sense and at times just looked like a scattered mess. That's when it gets really hard. But that's also when God would challenge me to really trust Him with my frustration, as He moves the pieces of my life around to make them fit. Another example of a piece I couldn't understand, and most definitely never would have chosen, was when we lost my father-in-law to cancer in March of 2017. My father-in-law was a close mentor and strong believer in who I was meant to be, even when I didn't see it in myself. I always enjoyed listening to what Father John had to say, whether it was his off-the-wall sense of humor or his conversations that made me dream bigger, even when we didn't agree. He always had my full attention. Listening to him tell about his many missionary adventures was a delight. He even wrote a book filled with these stories. If you are interested in reading it yourself, it's called Off the Wall and on His Pedestal. But truthfully, some of my favorite times with Father John were when we'd be sitting in the same room trying to work, but I'd be talking his ear off while he would always graciously appear interested. I saw Father John as a big piece of my life's puzzle, and such an example of how the Lord works through relationships to complete who we are to be. After he was gone, I was left thinking, how can my puzzle ever be complete if such a big piece is missing? Another time when we all went to Africa on a speaking trip, I felt God also planted in my heart that I would be on a world stage to share my story. At first, I thought it was impossible. Like, how am I going to be on a world stage? The only way that made sense to me was, see, my father-in-law was a missionary, and of course, that made sense to me. He's a missionary and had been to over 75 countries. There's the world stage. So after the first year of speaking and launching the initial season of my ministry, Vaughn and I were beginning to consider joining him on some of his adventures. We could even envision that we'd start traveling with him to fulfill the dream and vision I felt God gave me. So when he passed, I was devastated for the obvious reasons, but also was left with the question, what now? And you can be sure that I was being fed lies such as, if you were wrong about the world stage, what else were you wrong about? Maybe God doesn't really have this plan for you to impact the world as you think. Allow me to share something with you that I found in the midst of planning my father-in-law's memorial. In those hours of dealing with the loss and trying to make sense of it all, I came across something he wrote in his journal called "Don't Waste Your Suffering." Life won't get easier. Learn to accept disappointment, sufferings, and incalculable loss. On some levels, life may become easier, but the fact is, you'll weather one crisis only to face another. Life will never become void of pain or discouragement or periods of suffering. But remember, these are tools of your Lord to transform you. So lean into them to discover a new aspect of Jesus. A crisis, he said, is an unwelcomed opportunity for growth. So don't waste your suffering. The moment I read his words, "Don't waste your suffering," I knew that statement would be a part of his legacy that would live on through my husband and I. And while I didn't have all the answers, I knew that God was providing the strength I needed in that moment to keep going in faith. I knew I could trust him. Continuing on was really hard, but continue on I did. I'll let you in on a little secret about God. More often than not, he will make amazing things happen through our little decisions or little acts of obedience. He'll provide an opportunity, and it might seem good or bad to us at the time, but how we embrace that choice makes all the difference into a powerful outcome. 4 months after Father John passed, a friend of mine suggested I would enter the first ever Miss Wheelchair Canada pageant with her that fall in Vancouver, British Columbia. At first, I dismissed the idea with excuses like, "Isn't that pretty vain?" Or, "I'm about to become an ordained minister. How does this ever benefit my ministry?" But my parents and my husband supported the idea. I jumped in with a thrill in my heart, and the next thing I knew, I was winning Miss Wheelchair Canada, heading to Poland for the Miss Wheelchair World pageant. Who would have ever believed that I would win a beauty pageant and be crowned Miss Kindness on the world stage in Poland? Then I was invited on to do TV interviews, speak at schools and community events across Canada to share my story. I don't know about you, but this blew my mind and definitely muted the taunting arguments of the enemy. I'm sure you can see how we have to trust God with all the pieces that we can't understand. Father John's absence no longer felt like a gaping hole, leaving us incomplete. Rather, I realized how enriched my life had been through him, and that didn't end with his death. As I'm in the middle of writing this book, I experienced someone praying the most beautiful prayer over my life. But one thing that really struck my heart as he prayed was that I totally felt he was describing Father John. I was so blessed. I had to tell them that the way they acknowledged my life and how I live was exactly how I have heard others describe Pa. The tears just started falling as I had this beautiful moment of feeling that I'm carrying on his legacy, and I know he would be proud. Yes, of course, I miss him. We all do. And at times, I wish he could see me dreaming bigger and pushing others to do the same. But like those moments I found in the treasure that he had written and the prayer of a dear friend, I have seen my faith and my courage grow stronger as I have learned to trust when I didn't understand. You see, navigating the incalculable losses or unwelcome circumstances is never easy. It's never an easy process. But for me, I have found that all the events in my life, both good and bad, they form the big picture of my life. As I reflect back to May 30th, 1999, when transverse myelitis came into the landscape of my life, I thought my dreams of making a positive impact on the world had ended. That image of how I saw my life was no longer clear. However, what I thought was the end of my dreams actually set me on a path receiving more than I ever dreamed possible. These are puzzle pieces I would never have selected as any part of my life, but I chose to let God use them for His glory. I know now that if I am never tested, I will never know what I'm capable of. And if I don't learn to trust God, I'll never know what He's capable of. You see, trying to understand where all my pieces fit in the process is indeed a steep learning curve. It was for me. I have experienced many lessons around surrender and self-sacrifice. When they are mixed with lots of love, patience, faith, and obedience, you get the most amazing finished product. And the result, you gain unexplainable peace, defiant joy, and a courage that is contagious. God's perspective on my puzzle pieces has given me the courage to lean on His strength and power, not my own. And as a result, I am looking forward with great expectation to what God has for me. And I'm going to fight like a warrior. Yes, I am a giant slayer in training. And in the face of fear, insecurities, and self-doubt, I will choose courage and trust Him. Let me share a poem here of how the unlikely pieces fit into the fabric of our lives. The Father and Child poem by Cynthia Hilt. The Father spoke, "Come, child, let us journey together. Where shall we go, Father? To a distant land, another kingdom. So the journey will be long? Yes, we must travel every day. When will we reach our destination? The end of our days. And who will accompany us? Joy and sorrow. Must sorrow travel with us? Yes, she is necessary to keep you close to me. But I want only joy. It is only with sorrow that you will know true joy. What must I bring? A willing heart to follow me. What shall I do on the journey? There is only one thing that you must do. Stay close to me. Stay close. Let nothing distract you. Always keep your eyes on me. And what will I see? You will see my glory. And what will I know? You will know my heart. The Father stretches out His hand, and the child, knowing the great love her Father had for her, placed her hand in his and began her journey. I wonder, do you have some mismatched or disfigured puzzle pieces in front of you? Are you struggling to know where they fit? Maybe you're mad at God. Perhaps you're frustrated and are at a place where you've concluded that God has forgotten you or that He just doesn't care. Pause right here in this moment. Pause and take time to write out your thoughts about the pieces of your life that don't make sense. I don't know what the future will bring for you, but I pray that you will trust God completely to make all your pieces fit.